The crystalline spires of the throne hall shattered the morning light into 1,000 bleeding colors, but I barely noticed. My daughter's hand trembled in mine as the Empress's guards flanked us, their obsidian armor reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. They hadn't spoken since they found us in the lower decks. They hadn't needed to. "Papa, I didn't mean to... Quiet, Zara?" My voice came out harder than I intended. She was 8. 8 years old, and she'd wandered into a restricted section during the Festival of First Contact, touched something she shouldn't have, and now we stood before beings who could obliterate our entire colony with a thought. The doors ahead were 40 feet tall, carved from a single piece of midnight stone that seemed to drink the light. They opened without sound. The throne room beyond stretched into impossible distances, the ceiling lost in shadow despite the bioluminescent columns that lined the walls. At the far end, elevated on a dais that rose like a frozen wave, sat the Empress. I'd seen her image in broadcasts. Everyone in the human colonies had, but those had been sanitized, translated through screens and diplomatic filters. This was different. She was vast. Not in size, though. She towered over any human, but in presence. Her skin held the deep purple black of a bruise. Her eyes were pools of liquid silver that tracked our approach with the patience of something that had watched stars die. The crown that floated above her head wasn't metal or stone, but condensed gravity itself, warping the air around it. Beside her throne, one step down, sat another figure. Smaller, almost human-sized, but no less imposing. Where the Empress was dark space, the Queen was dying suns, her skin shifting through reds and golds, her expression unreadable, but her attention absolute. She watched us with the intensity of a surgeon making the first incision. We stopped at the prescribed distance, 20 paces from the dais. I started to kneel, pulling Zara down with me. Stand. I felt it in my bones before I heard it. The Empress hadn't moved, but her voice filled the chamber like water filling lungs. I stood. Zara pressed against my leg. The child touched the archive. Not a question, the Empress's eyes fixed on Zara, and I felt my daughter shrink back. She opened seals that have remained closed for 3,000 cycles. She accessed memories that predate your species' first stone tools. She didn't know, I said. My voice sounded pathetic in that vast space. She's a child. She was curious. I take full responsibility out of it. Silence. I stopped breathing. The Empress rose. The movement was fluid, inevitable, like a mountain deciding to walk. She descended the dais, each step resonating through the floor. The Queen stood as well, following, her gaze never leaving Zara. They were coming toward us. Every instinct screamed to run, to grab Zara and flee, but the guards behind us hadn't moved, and I knew we'd be dead before I took a step. The Empress stopped 3 paces away. This close, I could see that her skin wasn't smooth, but textured with microscopic scales that shifted like oil on water. Her breath, if she breathed, didn't move the air. She was looking at Zara now, only at Zara. "Show me your hands, child." Zara's fingers dug into my leg. I felt her shaking. "Zara," I whispered. "It's okay." Show her. They looked impossibly fragile in the space between us and the Empress. The Empress knelt. The Queen made a sound, sharp, surprised. The guard shifted. I heard armor creak. The Empress knelt before my daughter, bringing those silver eyes level with Zara's brown ones. "What did you see?" the Empress asked, and her voice was different now, quieter, almost gentle. "When you touched the archive, what did it show you?" Zara's voice was barely audible. "A garden. Describe it." There were trees, but not like our trees. They were tall and silver, and they hummed, and there was a little girl. She was playing. Zara looked up at me, confused. "She looked like you, Empress, but smaller," and she was laughing.
The silence that followed felt like falling. The Empress's eyes had changed.
The silver was clouding, darkening. When she finally spoke, her voice carried something I hadn't thought possible from a being like her. Grief. That garden burned 2,000 cycles ago. That child was my daughter. The archive should not have shown you this. It should not have been possible for you to access those memories. They were sealed, protected, hidden from everyone, including myself, because the pain of them was too great to bear. She reached out slowly, and I almost grabbed Zara, almost pulled her back, but something stopped me. The Empress's hand, massive, 4-fingered, covered in those shifting scales, touched my daughter's cheek with impossible gentleness. "Why did it show you?" the Empress whispered. "Why you—" Then she did something that shattered every protocol, every rule, every understanding I had of the vast gulf between their species and ours. The Empress of the Valkyrie Empire, ruler of 400 worlds, commander of fleets that had conquered galaxies, left her throne and sat down on the floor beside my daughter. The queen stood frozen, her expression unreadable but her posture radiating shock. And I realized that whatever was happening here, whatever door Zara had opened, we had just stepped across a threshold from which there was no return. The guards remained motionless, but I saw their hands move fractionally toward their weapons. The queen's eyes had narrowed, fixed on the Empress with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Something was wrong. Something beyond protocol, beyond the strangeness of an Empress sitting on the floor. There was a tension in the room now, thick as smoke, dangerous as lightning waiting to strike. Zara, either brave or foolish, or simply too young to understand the magnitude of the moment, sat down beside the Empress. "My mama died too," she said quietly. 3 years ago, the plague. I felt the words like a knife. I hadn't known Zara remembered enough to understand. The Empress turned her head slowly, looking at my daughter with those liquid silver eyes. "You understand loss. Papa says she's in the stars now, watching over us." Zara picked at the hem of her festival dress. "But I don't think the stars can see very well. They're so far away." "Yes," the Empress said. "They are." The queen moved then, descending from the dais with quick, controlled steps. She stopped directly in front of the Empress, looking down at her. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made my teeth ache. "Empress, this is unprecedented." "The council will wait." The Empress didn't look up. Her attention remained on Zara. "How did you access the archive, child? Tell me exactly what you did." I nodded, though I had no idea if this was the right choice. She turned back to the Empress. "I was following the music," she said. "During the festival, everyone was celebrating, but I heard something else. Like singing, but not with words. It was coming from the lower levels, so I went down the stairs that were marked with the red symbols." "The seals?" I breathed. "Zara, those weren't decorations. They were warnings." "But the music was so pretty," she protested. "And when I got to the door, it was already open. Just a little bit. And there was light coming out, all different colors, and I went inside." The queen's skin flared brighter, golds shifting to warning oranges. "The archive door was open?" "Impossible. It requires 3 key holders simultaneously to breach those seals. The Empress, the High Chancellor, and the Keeper of Memories. No one else can." "It was open," Zara insisted, "and inside there was this big pool of light in the middle of the room. I walked up to it and looked down and I could see things. Memories, I think. Lots of them, all swirling together. And then I saw the garden and the little girl, and I reached out to touch it because she looked so happy, and I wanted to..." Her voice caught. "I wanted to remember what it felt like when Mama made me happy like that." The Empress's hand moved to Zara's shoulder. The gesture looked awkward, as if she'd forgotten how to comfort someone and was remembering piece by piece. "The archive responded to your grief," the Empress said slowly, working through the implications. "It recognized a kindred pain and opened itself to you. But that should not be possible. The archive is not sentient. It does not feel. It does not choose." "Perhaps it has learned," the queen said, and her voice had gone cold. "Perhaps in 3,000 cycles of containing the Empress's most carefully hidden sorrows, it has absorbed something it should not have." "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that this child has done something no one in the Empire has done since the sealing. She has accessed forbidden memories. She has seen what you decreed should never be seen again. And more concerning, she has proven that the archive's defenses can be circumvented." The queen's eyes flicked to me, then back to the Empress. "The security breach alone demands consequences." "She's 8 years old," I said, finding my voice despite the fear clawing at my throat. "She didn't know. She can't be held responsible for... Ignorance is not innocence in matters of imperial security," the queen cut me off. "The law is clear. Unauthorized access to restricted archives carries a mandatory sentence of neural restructuring. The child's memories of what she saw must be removed, along with the memories of anyone she may have told." "No." The word came out before I could stop it. "No, you're not touching her mind. You're not taking her memories. It is not your decision to make, human. She is my daughter. That makes it exactly my decision." The queen's skin blazed bright enough to hurt my eyes. "You dare speak to me of enough?" The Empress stood, rising to her full height. The air itself seemed to compress under the weight of her presence. There will be no neural restructuring. The child saw what she saw because the archive permitted it, perhaps deemed it necessary. I will not punish her for the archive's choice. You set the laws yourself, Empress, the Queen said, and there was something sharp in her tone now. After the fall of Alkarios. After your daughter. You said no one should ever access those memories again. You said the pain was too dangerous, too destabilizing. You created the protocols. You established the consequences. I did. Then honor them. For the Empire's stability. For your own protection. The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Zara. What else did you see in the archive? Besides the garden, besides my daughter. Zara bit her lip. There was a fire. A big one. It swallowed everything, and there was screaming. And you were there, younger, and you were trying to save her, but the fire was too fast, and Zara stopped tears forming. She was calling for you. She was scared. That is enough. Empress, this proves my point. These memories are toxic. They serve no purpose but to... She was calling for me, the Empress repeated, her voice distant. I had forgotten that, or perhaps I had forced myself to forget. The archive remembered. It remembered her voice. Yes, and that is exactly why these memories were sealed. The Queen's frustration was barely contained in now. You spent 200 cycles rebuilding yourself after her death. 200 cycles where the Empire nearly collapsed because its Empress was consumed by grief. We cannot allow that to happen again. The archive showed the child these memories for a reason. The archive is malfunctioning, or it is trying to tell me something. The Empress looked down at Zara again. Did you see anything else? Anything after the fire? Zara nodded slowly. There was a room. Dark. And you were sitting in it alone. And you were holding something small. A toy, I think. And you were just sitting there for a long, long time. And then someone came in. She looked at the Queen. It was you. You sat down beside her. You didn't say anything. You just sat there with her. The Queen's entire body went still. I had forgotten that as well, the Empress said quietly. You stayed with me for 30 cycles, never leaving, never speaking. Just present. It was my duty, the Queen said, but her voice had lost its edge. It was more than duty. The Empress turned to face her fully. You were afraid I would not return from that darkness. You were afraid the grief would consume me entirely. So you sat with me. You bore witness to my pain so I would not have to bear it alone. The Queen said nothing. This child, the Empress continued, gesturing to Zara, has reminded me of something I had buried deeper than those memories. That grief, when shared, becomes bearable. That pain, when witnessed, loses some of its power. She knelt again, bringing herself level with Zara once more. You access the archive not through technology or authority, but through compassion, through your own understanding of loss. And in doing so, you have given me back something I thought destroyed forever. The memory of your daughter? I asked quietly. No. The Empress shook her head. The memory that someone cared enough to sit with me in my darkest moment. The Queen did that for me once. Today, you and your daughter have done it again. She reached out, and this time I didn't flinch when she touched Zara's face. The archive was not malfunctioning, the Empress said, directing her words to the Queen but keeping her eyes on Zara. It was healing. It recognized this child's pain and responded to it. It showed her my memories because it understood that shared grief is the first step toward transformation. The archive has been trying to tell me for 3,000 cycles that I do not have to carry this alone. I have simply been too afraid to listen. The Queen's expression had shifted. The anger was gone, replaced by something softer, more complex. You wish to reopen the archive. I wish to stop hiding from my past. The Empress stood again, and when she looked at the Queen now, there was a vulnerability in those silver eyes that seemed impossible for someone so powerful. You were right to fear for me. You were right to establish the protocols, but you were wrong to think that sealing the memories would heal the wounds. It has only preserved them, kept them fresh and bleeding for 3 millennia. Perhaps it is time to let them breathe. To remember my daughter not just as she died, but as she lived. Then, slowly, she descended the final step and stood beside the Empress. Not in confrontation. In support. If you do this, she said, the Council will protest. They will say it makes you vulnerable, compromised. Let them say it. They will demand safeguards. Limitations. I will consider reasonable precautions. They will want to know why. Why now? Why for a human child who stumbled into something she did not understand? The Empress looked down at Zara again, and something that might have been a smile touched her features. Because she reminds me of my daughter, the Empress said simply. Curious. Too young to know when she should be afraid, and because she did something I have not allowed myself to do in 3,000 cycles. What is that? She reached out to touch joy, even though she knew it would hurt, even though she knew it was a memory of something lost. She reached out anyway, because the memory of happiness is better than the absence of feeling at all. Your daughter has given me a gift today, though she does not know it. In return, I would offer her something. My throat was dry. What? Access to the archive? Not the sealed sections? Those are still too dangerous, too raw? But the living memories, the histories, the collected wisdom of 400 worlds. She has a gift for accessing what others cannot see. With training, with guidance, she could become something the Empire has never had before. What's that? Between species, between grief and healing, between what was lost and what might yet be found. The Empress paused. I would like her to be educated here, at the Imperial Court, under my personal protection. The weight of what she was offering, and what she was asking, pressed down on me like a physical force. You want to take her from me? No. I want to give her opportunities your colony cannot provide. But I would not separate you. You would come as well. Both of you. You would be given quarters in the court. Position, purpose. Those silver eyes found mine. You would be given the chance to watch your daughter become something extraordinary. And if I say no? The Empress tilted her head slightly. Then you say no? I am not in the habit of taking children from their parents. I have learned, quite painfully, what that absence costs. She was staring up at the Empress with wide eyes, but she didn't seem afraid anymore. She seemed curious. Hopeful, even. What do you think? I asked her quietly. The music is still playing, she whispered. Can you hear it, Papa? It's coming from everywhere now. It's beautiful. But I saw the wonder in my daughter's face, and I thought about the life she would have back in the colony. Safe. Small. Limited to the boundaries of human understanding. Or she could have this. Danger and possibility in equal measure. A chance to be something we'd never imagined. I looked up at the Empress. At the Queen standing beside her. At the guards who had finally relaxed their stance, recognizing that the crisis had passed. At the vast throne room with its impossible architecture and its secrets that spanned millennia. If she stays, I said slowly, she stays as my daughter. Not as your project. As a child who deserves to be a child, even while she learns to be something more. Agreed. No obligations, no consequences. The Empress's eyes flickered to the Queen, who gave the smallest nod. Agreed, the Empress said. I took a breath, released it. Then we'll stay. The Queen stepped forward then, and I tensed, but she wasn't looking at me. She knelt in front of Zara, bringing herself down to the child's level just as the Empress had done. You have done something today that will change the Empire, the Queen said, her voice carrying none of its earlier hardness. You have reminded us that strength and vulnerability are not opposites, that power and compassion can coexist. This is a lesson many in the court have forgotten, including myself.
She glanced up at the Empress.
Including those I care for most. Zara looked between them, processing this in whatever way an 8-year-old mind could process being so far beyond human experience. Are you friends? She asked. The question hung in the air. The Empress and the Queen looked at each other, and something passed between them that I couldn't name. History. Understanding. A relationship that transcended simple categories. Yes, the Empress said finally. We are. Good. Zara said with the casual certainty of childhood. Everyone needs friends. Papa says so. He says that's how we survive the hard things. By not being alone. The Empress's expression softened in a way I wouldn't have thought possible. Your father is very wise. I almost laughed at that. Wise. I was a maintenance worker who'd raised a daughter alone for 3 years, doing the best I could with what I had. But looking at Zara now, sitting on the floor of an alien throne room between two of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, both of them having descended from their positions of authority to meet her where she was, maybe I'd done something right after all. Preparations will need to be made. The child will require tutors, protection, appropriate accommodation. See to it, the Empress said. But first, she held out her hand to Zara. Would you like to see the archive properly? With permission this time. I think it would like to meet you formally. She took the Empress's massive hand in both of hers without hesitation. Will I get to see the garden again? Perhaps, if the archive allows it. If I allow myself. The Empress's voice carried a tremor of something that might have been fear, might have been hope. It has been a long time since I let myself remember her as she was when she was happy. They started walking toward a door I hadn't noticed before, hidden in the shadows at the far end of the throne room. The Queen followed, then gestured for me to come as well. The guards remained at their posts, still as statues. As we walked through the vast space, Zara's small voice echoed off the walls. What was her name? Your daughter? The Empress was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, soft as falling dust, Valkyria. She was named for the homeworld. That's pretty. Can I see pictures of her? Real ones, not just the memories? There are no pictures. We do not capture images the way your people do. We preserve memories in the archive, where they live and breathe and change with time, like they're trapped. The Empress stopped walking. She looked down at Zara with an expression I was beginning to recognize. Surprise mixed with something deeper. Recognition, maybe. The shock of being understood by someone who shouldn't be able to understand. Yes, she said quietly. It is lonely. For them and for me. Then maybe it's good I opened it, Zara said. Maybe they wanted to get out. The Queen made a sound that might have been a laugh. The child has a point, Empress. Perhaps your memories have been waiting 3,000 cycles for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to set them free. The Empress resumed walking, but there was something different in her posture now, less rigid, less burdened. Perhaps, she agreed. We reached the hidden door. It opened at the Empress's approach, revealing a corridor that descended into blue-lit depths. The music that Zara had been hearing, that I still couldn't, grew louder according to my daughter's expression. She squeezed the Empress's hand. It's singing about her, Zara said. About Valkyria. It's been singing about her this whole time, waiting for someone to listen. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I hadn't known she could cry. And when she spoke, her voice was barely audible. Then, let us listen together. She stepped forward into the corridor. Zara went with her without hesitation. The Queen followed, and finally, I did too, leaving the throne room and its protocols behind. As we descended into the archive's depths, I realized that my daughter had done something today that entire diplomatic corps had failed to do in decades of negotiation. She had bridged a gap we hadn't even known existed. Not between humans and aliens, but between grief and healing, between isolation and connection, between a past that could not be changed and a future that could still be shaped by compassion. The corridor opened into a vast chamber where light moved like living things, pooling and swirling in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The archive. At its center, the pool Zara had described, though it was less a pool and more a convergence of possibilities, a place where memories intersected with present awareness. The Empress approached it slowly, reverently. She had not been here in 3,000 cycles, had not allowed herself to come here, to face what she had lost. But she was here now, and Zara was beside her, and the Queen stood watch behind them both. Show me, the Empress whispered to the archive. Show me my daughter, not her death, not the fire. Show me who she was before the end. The light shifted, concentrated, began to take form, and in the swirling luminescence, a small figure appeared. Running, laughing, alive, Valkyria racing through a garden of silver trees that hummed with a music even I could hear now. The Empress made a sound, raw, broken, beautiful. She reached toward the image but stopped just short of touching it, as if afraid it would dissolve. Zara had no such hesitation. She walked right up to the memory and put her hand into the light. Hello, she said to the ghost of Valkyria. My name is Zara. Your mom has missed you very much. The image flickered, seemed to notice Zara, and the laugh that came from it was like bells and broken glass, and joy too pure for this fallen universe. The Empress dropped to her knees. The Queen was beside her instantly, one hand on her shoulder, grounding her, keeping her tethered to the present, even as the past bloomed before them. And I stood there, watching my daughter play with the memory of a dead alien princess in an archive that sang songs of sorrow and hope. And I understood finally what the Empress had meant. This was healing. Not the absence of pain, but the courage to face it with someone beside you. Not the sealing away of grief, but the gentle opening of it, letting light touch the wounds so they could finally begin to close. My daughter had given the Empress back her daughter, if only for a moment. And in doing so, she had given her something more valuable still, the knowledge that memory and love, once shared, can survive even the longest night. The Empress watched Valkyria's image with tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. The Queen stood strong beside her, bearing witness as she had done 3 millennia ago. And Zara played in the light, fearless and kind, building a bridge between past and present with nothing but her own honest heart. In the throne room above, the guards would be wondering what was happening. The council would be preparing questions. The Empire would soon learn that their Empress had broken her own laws, had reopened what was meant to stay sealed forever. But down here, in the archive's depths, none of that mattered. Here there was only this: an Empress who had left her throne to sit beside a child who understood grief, and a queen who watched over them both, and the music of memories finally set free to breathe and sing and heal. And it was enough.